Phoenix Mercury have dropped 4 straight. They're now 8-17. The question is, what can they do to fix it? Well, we're going to try to figure that out after this. What's up, everybody? Welcome into the PHNX Mercury podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Mountain America Credit Union. My name is Gil. We got Kev behind the Mac, making the magic happen. And to my right is SPG, the man who we all know. Got a couple of you guys hanging out with us in the chat already. Sam, man, Laura, great to see you as always. Great to have you all here on this Tuesday evening. And I wish that things were better in Mercury land. As we mentioned the last time we talked, we were meeting after a heartbreaker on Thursday against the Indiana Fever, a 3-point loss. And you and I both said, I don't know how you come back from this. I don't know where you go from here. I don't know how you recover from this. And before we talk about all of that, let me not get ahead of myself. Steven, how are you today, man?
I'm doing good. Could be doing a lot better. Need this team to get it together because they are not playing to the level of the talent that their roster suggests that they have. But I'm doing all right, though.
All right, Kev, how are you doing? Okay, that was
supposed to be tea. That was supposed to be tea, but it was a whole lot of
vibe.
noise, and that's honestly kind of how I feel about this season.
You know, that's how discombobulated things have been. That's probably how I'm feeling as well. There's a lot been going on. Happy to be able to get back here and talk Mercury basketball with you all. I have to address an elephant, I guess. It was an elephant-sized loss. Dinosaur-sized loss on Saturday, 48-point L to the Las Vegas Aces on Saturday. And then last night, they didn't bounce back. I thought they were going to bounce back, but a much better showing in Minneapolis, but still did not result in a win. A 4-point loss to the Lynx in a high-scoring affair. 104-100 was the final score in that one, but the result is the result. The team has now dropped 4 straight: Chicago, Indiana, Las Vegas, Minnesota, and is 8-17 on the season through 25 games. That lack of hope, that empty feeling that I said that I felt last Thursday has only gotten to be a stronger feeling. And today we'll talk about some of the issues that have shown themselves in these last 2 games, but over the losing streak as a whole. And of course, we will spin things forward and try to figure out what some solutions could be and how those solutions could be applied as 2 meetings with the Connecticut Sun await the Mercury this week. But before we get to that, let's talk about these last 2 losses. Steven, where do you want to begin with what happened on this 2-game road trip in which the Mercury come back having lost 2 of 2?
I will start with the game against the Aces. And this will be brief, but 9 points in the first quarter. Not going to get it done.
Nope.
13 points in the second quarter. Not going to get it done. 14 points in the third quarter. Not going to get it done. 22 in the fourth. Usually can give you a chance, but when you factor in or you add in what preceded the 22 in the fourth with 14 and 13 and 9, that's not enough. And that was a game that entered garbage time a little bit sooner than normal, even in a game that might be a blowout. To lose 58-106 is that's not going to get it done, especially, again, context-wise, following the game that you had prior to then, one that you rightfully so feel like you should have won against the Indiana Fever. You want to go and kind of start to get that bad taste out of your mouth immediately. Put the mouthwash in your mouth as soon as you wake up, get the day rolling. Instead, they kind of forgot to brush the teeth, and they just kind of messed up the entire flow with that 9-point first quarter, also one in which they gave up 29 points. That's tough. That's tough. I kind of leave that one there because I think the score itself is self-explanatory. Well, actually, one last thing I'll touch on with that one. 17 turnovers in that game that resulted in 24 points for the Las Vegas Aces. So you gave away more points than you scored in any individual quarter in the game itself. Not an ideal solution or ideal way to go about trying to get one. Before I go to the Minnesota game, did you have any thoughts on the Aces? I don't even know if you want to call that one a game because it wasn't resistance.
The Aces Invitational.
Yeah, the Invitational.
It was bad. I was in Las Vegas when that happened. Was not at that game. I was at the Thomas and Mack Center for some Suns Summer League duties on that Saturday.
Thomas and Natasha Mack.
Yeah, they could use Natasha back in the lineup for
Big
sure.
facts.
I think that's crazy. Alyssa Thomas and I didn't even think about that. They should have played that game there. Maybe they would have won the game. But
you need that.
I was checking in periodically, and the next thing I know, it's 38-90. And it's 52 points, which 52 points is 52 points, but it looks even more jarring because 38 feels like it's just like a first half score, and 90 is like a final score, and it was just crazy to see that out there. And I was like, man, just don't drop this game by 50 points. They trailed by as many as 54 in that game, and my concern immediately went to, is there going to be a shakeup coming out of this? Is this going to be the end? Is this what marks the end of the season? I know we saw somebody in the chat said they called that game a quiet quit. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but it does feel like they were demoralized, and I think there's a difference between quitting and not showing up. And one has way different connotations, both bad, but when you quit, that's just done. Everything is done. I think there was more of a not showing up, not prepared to play, not ready for what was there. And it's one of those things where it's like, what can you really say about this game? You lost by 52 points. Now, do I fully agree with what Derek Fisher said yesterday and said that sometimes those losses are easier to deal with than the close losses like the one you had last night, because you just say, hey, we got beat. There's not one or two things we could have done differently. They had to have gone to sleep differently and woken up out of the bed and had different breakfasts and all that differently to have a different outcome in that game to be dominated like that. But we can move things forward and say, okay, how do you respond? How do you respond to that? How do you respond to being outmatched? How do you respond to not showing up in an opportunity in a spot where your season is really needs a lifeline, where it is in the risk of just being completely lost, and by many accounts it already is lost. And it didn't result in a win, but was a little more pleased with the effort yesterday. Talking about taking a 27-21 lead out of the first quarter against a Lynx team that has been one of the best in the league all year, and leading by as many as 9 points in the game, but ultimately not having enough, not being able to make enough plays down the stretch, and losing another close game, losing to the Lynx for the third time this season, allowing 70 combined points from Kayla McBride and Olivia Miles McBride with 37 points, 6 of 11 from 3, Miles with 33 points, 5 of 8 from 3 in the game. When you think back to what we watched last night in that game and all the numbers that stand out and all the things that could have happened or could have gone differently, where do you begin with where things went wrong for the Phoenix Mercury?
Just specific to last night's game?
Last night's game. Or we can look at them in a whole. Did you see anything carry over from Saturday into last night's game? Do you think anything corrected from Saturday to last night's game?
Yeah.
What's been this team's fatal flaw as of late?
Yeah, thankfully, I didn't feel like I saw carryover from the Saturday performance to yesterday night's game. That's a good sign if you're looking for things to take away. This team is well past moral victories. Obviously, from a team that made the finals last season, you're above that, but also for a team that has kind of had the things that preceded them up until this kind of portion of the schedule, those type of marginal moral victories are not going to be the ones that help you get to where it is you want to be. So I want to make that be clear, but that was a step in the right direction in terms of responding, maybe not in the same game, but in the game sequentially that comes next. They look like night and day compared to themselves from Saturday to last night, and that says a lot because it wasn't about the opponent. It was literally themselves, the Mercury versus Mercury adage that we continue to lean on in this season. So I start with that. Looking at that game itself, though, it's the clutch games, the play when it's a 5-point game within the last 5 minutes of games. They have to clean those things up. They have to. It feels like there's a lot of games where they've left food on the table in fourth quarters in particular, and that is the most you have no more time to make up for mistakes portion of the game. It's either you get it right in that moment or you might find yourself on the short end of the stick, even if you did play well comprehensively for the game. And it feels like last night was a game where, again, the untimely turnovers, the types of turnovers that there is no defense for, conceding those live ball turnovers at those moments in the game is almost non-negotiable unless you're coming back down and you're getting that back instantly. And a team like Minnesota is not going to let you get that too often. And I feel like that's a lot of what we saw specifically in like the last 7 minutes of that game last night.
What's tough when I look and I think back to last night, I think to fourth quarter execution and leads, Merck take an 8-point lead early in the fourth quarter, and Lynx respond with an 11-2 run. Yep. And it felt like after that run, they were fully in command of the game. It felt like the Merc were playing catch up and trying to just match what Minnesota had going for them. And they had the momentum being the home team in this game. Now, if you throw Saturday out because it's an aberration as far as you lose by 48 points, there really isn't one or two things that you could have done differently. The only thing you could have done differently was tip the ball back up and start the entire game over and maybe have a different play. But thinking back now, 2 of the last 3 losses, you lead by 10 in the fourth quarter against Indiana, and you lead by 8 in the fourth quarter against Minnesota. From my viewpoint and my vision, it's no secret Minnesota is a much better basketball team than Indiana, especially Indiana that's not at full strength. And Thursday's game, I felt like there was a lot the Mercury could have done, and there were things that they left on the table, as you were saying. Last night, when I'm watching the game, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know how they keep up with this. I don't know what they can do to match this. There was a big 3 from Sami that went down. I was like, that was massive. I didn't know if they were going to be able to find anything in this spot. And there were so many spots, so many times I find this team, as far as the late game execution goes, what's the answer going to be? What are they going to be able to do? And a lot of times I get worried that they're not going to be able to find ways to do things against a team like Minnesota. That they had opportunities all the way down the stretch of the game, and ended up being a couple plays. It was tied at 96 with under 2 minutes remaining, and tied again at 98 with a minute remaining, and it was the Lynx that made more plays in that final minute of the game. You still had opportunities, you still had chances, but that's where I feel like that team is missing that edge, and that edge is the difference between being, quite frankly, 8-17 and something like 12-13, because this is yet another game, another clutch game that they weren't able to execute down the stretch. And I know there's someone in the chat saying that the execution down the stretch is coaching, but I think it's more of me thinking, I wasn't thinking, oh, Nate's not going to draw the right thing up. I'm thinking, are they going to be able to execute? Who do I trust to be the person to make this shot? I know AT is AT and gets downhill and does what she does, but it's who she's creating for. Are they going to knock the shot down? Is Ka going to be able to get through the defense the way that she needs to, with the way they're giving attention to her? And those are where my concerns are overarching with this team down the stretch in their fourth quarter execution.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, man. Like, we had this conversation last week about when it's not apt to blame a coach for issues or a team not living up to whatever their expectations might be that you have for them, the expectations they might have for themselves, or what their level of play suggests that they should be playing to. Thinking back to one play in the fourth quarter, they run some action on the strong side just to get it to the second side, which is where Alyssa Thomas is waiting in the opposite slot for the ball. She gets the ball, and to your point about her getting downhill and that being some of the best offense in all of the WNBA, she goes to attack, gets a stunt from the nail, and she makes a kind of ill-advised pass on the timing and angle to the player that's a pass away from her. And that ends up being a turnover, a live ball turnover for Minnesota that the Mercury can't get back to. And that's one of those moments where you can say coaching, but I'm just recounting literal plays that have nothing to do with coaching. You put pieces in position, but now the job is incumbent on the pieces that are in position to execute. If that execution level is not there, and you also look at other examples of other players, not just Alyssa Thomas, but that's just the first one that came to mind as far as the live ball turnovers go. You can go back to the Indiana game with the turnovers that we talked about from Valu and Monique. Like, those are the ones that there's no coaching for that. You put players in positions to make reads and make simple reads. Sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce their way in terms of just weaknesses or different issues happening on the court at times. Sometimes the defense dictates the terms to you. That's not coaching. That's the players needing to be able to react in respect to what the situation is demanding from them skill-wise, processing-wise, decision-making-wise. And those instances that I'm speaking to right now are just ones where there's no thought of a coach at those moments. Those are players making decisions or just not being able to execute to their expected level. And that's kind of what continues to come up and ultimately get in their way.
Armani says the fourth quarter issue has definitely been a problem. They have been awful in fourth quarter execution all season. Is that not coaching? I think everybody has a hand in it. I think it's everybody that has a hand in it.
Nobody's absolved the blame there.
I think about defensively in the fourth quarter, which we haven't even really talked about yet. The Lynx shoot 9 of 15 from the field in the fourth quarter, score 35 points in the fourth quarter. I know there's some fouling at the end, but outscore the Merc 35-25 in the final frame. 9 of 15 from the field, 5 of 8 from deep, 16 points from Olivia Miles in the frame, and 11 from Kayla McBride in the final frame. And there is an element, again, of defensive execution. And yes, you could make an argument. You can make a conversation and say that maybe try different lineups, maybe try different things on the defensive end. But when I think about defense, there is an element of want to, element of get to, an element of know-how, element of KYP, element of following the scout and just guarding your yard, guarding who it is you're matched up with. And credit to Minnesota. That's 2 really, really, really talented guards. Olivia Miles, one of the best guards in the league already in her first season. Kayla McBride, MVP candidate. Kayla McBride, super sharpshooter, knocked down 6 threes in the game. So that's when you're like, oh, well, how is she getting the daylight? How is she able to get these looks off? Same thing for Olivia Miles. And that becomes a question of, okay, buttons being pressed or players not executing to the level they're playing at. And the reality of it is the answer is probably yes to both. This team is 8-17. The blame goes all across the board, but I don't think it's as simple as saying it's one thing. At this point, it's a combination of all the things.
Yeah, it's a combination, and it feels like the snowball just continues to build, and it ends up working against them just in individual instances of these fourth quarters that we're speaking to. To the Olivia Miles portion of it, that's a really good basketball player right there.
Indeed.
That's someone that's very tough to not just game plan for, but execute any game plan for. Just because she blends the playmaking with the scoring and the ability to rise all of the pieces on the floor along with keeping herself as a threat, which is not easy to do at any point in any individual's career, but especially as a rookie. Like, this is supposed to be new. There's supposed to be a learning curve. She hasn't had one. She hasn't had one at all. And she definitely hasn't been posed a learning curve against the Mercury in particular. It feels like anything she's wanted, she's been able to get on the terms that she wants to get that on. So that's tough for the Merc to have to try to find a way to put that fire out. That was one of the keys. That was the first key for last night's game. Figure out a way to put that fire out.
Keys,
true. The keys weren't jangling yesterday, though, because they weren't able to check those boxes off. They did, however, now that I'm recounting, knock down a lot of threes yesterday.
They did.
They knocked down what was one of their higher season totals in terms of threes made. Partly what kept them in that game and honestly had them with the lead in multiple stretches. But the other part of that, too, is I feel like that's a example of their offense getting to a point where it can give them a chance. And naturally, if you score 100 points, you're going to give yourself a chance in every game. You just can't give up 104. No. That's the issue. And especially when you factor in the 37.
70 of those are 2 people.
Yeah, exactly. Not going to get it done. So they have to figure out ways that, okay, the offense is at a level that it needs to be at for them to win. Can we get enough defense? If we're not going to be the juggernaut we were last season, can we just be a timely stops team and then work our way up from there if that's in the cards? And they got to figure that part out quick because time is ticking. All-Star break is a little over a week and a half away. And you're dwindling in terms of the amount of games left as we're on the other side of the halfway mark of the season.
11 of 25 from 3, which is a great 44% in the game, but 1 of 6 in the fourth quarter, while Minnesota was 5 of 8 in the fourth quarter. So they outscore you by 10 in the fourth, and they outscore you by 12 from beyond the arc in that quarter. And that's not the only difference, but that is something that you can look directly to as one of the things that could have been different. Now, we've talked a lot about, and we are talking a lot about, the problems and the issues and what we're seeing from our vantage point and what's happening, what happened last Thursday. what happened Saturday, but more so what happened Thursday and Monday in these two close losses, which if a few things here or there go differently, we're having a very different discussion and conversation right now. What solutions? When we talk about being solutions guys and the solutions to the issues that need to be corrected before the schedule picks back up and to go into All-Star with some type of positive momentum, Stephen, where do you think things begin as far as solutions to the problems go?
Yeah, for me, I have the clutch time performances directly in my crosshairs. So as we take a look at the numbers and we look at the way that things have doled out for the Mercury in the clutch this season, they have played 25 games, correct?
25 games, correct.
25 games. So 14 of their 25 games have come in the clutch.
What's the record in those games?
5-9.
It's not good.
So when you're looking at they're 8-17 right now, 5-9 record-wise, you see that if those numbers were flipped, that gives a complete different perspective on the season as a whole. But you can just say, okay, you flip numbers and you see this different result. What about if you're getting some of these clutch wins in succession with some of these games that ended up turning into losses? It changes the entire complexion of the season. The mental approach, everything's different. You might lose one of those games that you did ultimately end up losing, but if you won one of those clutch games, that gives you a different type of spark in terms of how you're approaching the next one. It's less likely that something on the negative side bleeds into the next game if you're just figuring it out. That's the biggest part of a regular season or a journey in general, is just figuring it out. And they just haven't been able to the extent that their talent individually and as a team suggests. So kind of looking at that even more, they're, in terms of plus or minus, they're minus 1.1 in clutch. So that, again, a game last night, they lost by 4 points. A game against Indiana was another single-digit loss. These single-digit, almost one-possession games that they're losing shows up in that plus or minus of minus 1.1, saying that if one or two things you're able to control goes a little bit more firmly in your favor and you're able to kind of dictate or manipulate it, you might be looking at a completely different season. And those are the margins that it feels like they've been playing on pretty much all season long. Last thing I'll mention with it all, where was I looking at? Oh, the three-point percentage in crunch time. So only 30%. That number is low. And I feel like that's a number that they need some more of those to fall. You mentioned the Sami Whitcomb one. Nate mentioned the Sami Whitcomb one against Indiana. Even I mentioned that one. DeWanna had one mixed in there as well. It's like the timely shots that they were able to always find a way to make. They're creating those opportunities on a shot quality that suggested us to believe, oh, yeah, they got to make that one. That one's probably going in. And it just hasn't. You have to find a way to get those timely moments to work in your favor.
So that's the conversation. It feels like more execution, more shot making.
Yeah, for sure.
Defensive execution is the big one, though, when you think about there were times in these runs. It's these runs that's been the difference, and that's been a common theme all season. I think back to the Liberty run that they had that really just was unheard of. I think it was 23-0, something like that. Think back to blown fourth quarter leads, Minnesota, Indiana, Minnesota again, come to mind right away. Atlanta comes to mind as well. And it's because there are these lapses and lulls that happen. I think very specifically, like at the Atlanta game where it felt like it was going to turn the tides of the season, and it was avalanche, a quick avalanche. One mistake rolls into two mistakes, and two mistakes rolls into three mistakes. And where my concern comes in with this team and the state of this team and where they stand right now is not having enough. There's one thing to say, go out and make more shots, go out and execute better, but this group specifically, and not to single out any individual because it might not necessarily be an individual thing, it might just be the collection of individuals and how they play off of one another and how their tendencies fit alongside one another's tendencies. This is maybe the best that they could be. And that's what my concern is. I don't know if that's the case, if that's the truth, but when the same thing continues to happen over and over again, I'm just curious that if there's an actual answer on the roster or if there is some type of combination that we haven't seen that we need to see more of that can fix these problems that they're having, because ultimately I think it's just a skill thing and where this team is and where they are limited.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to a point where you start to have to, if you're not outright thinking and believing that, you have to at least play the mental gymnastics part of questioning and playing back and forth. Okay, do I think this is true? Okay, no. If I say no, then why is that? Okay, I have X, Y, Z, and ABC that I've seen over this person's career, and in this short stint with the Mercury this season in particular, they either confirms or refutes what it is that I'm trying to make sense of in my brain. And it feels like for me, anytime I have a thought of like, man, they might not have it, then I start thinking about, okay, they have Alyssa Thomas. What does Alyssa Thomas present and pose to a defense? What does she also mean to their defense itself on the defensive end of the floor? Nothing to worry about there, in my personal opinion. You look at Kahleah Copper. Yes, there's been some highs and lows in terms of what her expectations are this season, but in this recent 2.5, 3 week stretch, there's been a lot more, this is exactly why you are who you think you are, than there is, man, I hope she figures it out sometime soon. That part I don't worry about. But then this is where you start to question a little bit more, because after you get past those two, who's bringing you what you consistently need on a game-by-game basis to where it's giving you a chance for those two players to do what they do best as two top 15 players in the W, even on their worst nights. And it feels like they haven't been able to consistently bridge that gap in tandem with one or both of those players not playing to the level that the team needs them to be at to win games. That Indiana game was so important because we talked about it in postgame. That was one of the few times, maybe the only time this season, that both of those two got to the 20-plus point mark in the same game. Sometimes it's one, and sometimes it's the other, and they both find ways to impact the game outside of just scoring. But it feels like for them to get the best and maximize this roster, they have to get that in addition to the other things that those two bring. So bridging that gap and finding someone else that's consistently along for the ride with them to help push them to the finish line and get it done, it feels like that's where they're at right now.
And it's important to not hide behind the injuries as an excuse.
For sure.
But you get Sami Whitcomb back in the lineup. But we also mentioned that Natasha Mack has been out for a while. And as you pointed out the other day, Kat Westbeld isn't available this season. Two people that you're going to rely on to do a lot of things. And newsflash, oftentimes the people who are backups aren't able to do it in that level. Or you're asking people to play out of position and do things that somebody else does well because it's their natural position. And, newsflash, they're not going to be able to do it at that high of a level. So I also think that is the combination of things of people being asked to perform outside themselves, whether it's being outmatched size, whether it's not necessarily having the skill set, whether it's not necessarily having the talent to match up with the people that they are expected to match up with, given whatever it is that makes that not their natural position. And there has been a domino effect throughout the roster to where basically everybody not named Kahleah Copper and Alyssa Thomas are asked to punch up a weight class with respect to the workload that they're taking on. I think Alyssa Thomas has done so as well, playing the center position and matching up with different people. But she is being asked what superstars being asked to do a little bit of everything, be our everything. And same thing for Kahleah Copper, but everybody else is being asked to do that. And sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. And we are definitely seeing the latter this season with the Merc.
Yeah, that's the limbo right there. I wonder if, I don't want to jump ahead because we have more to speak to on it all, but I'm just wondering if there's a spark from the internal that hasn't been lit yet or that hasn't sustained yet that is going to be enough for them to be able to start to see a little bit more of, okay, if we collectively and internally think that we can climb this mountain and get to that 8th seed, we just need 2 or 3 of these pieces to just consistently be there. I wonder how much of that gets factored into all of it. And I actually we heard Nate Tibbetts talk about it a little bit after last night's loss to the Minnesota Lynx. He spoke to a handful of things, so this clip is going to be a little bit longer, maybe about a minute and some change, but spoke to last night's game, contextualized it to what they were looking at internally after the loss, and then added a little bit more to what he had to say there.
The biggest message today is we wanted to compete, and we wanted to respond from what had happened the other night in Vegas. Really proud of our group. We had a good conversation this morning, collectively as a team, and we wanted to come out and give ourselves a chance to win, and we did that today.
What's the goal going into the All-Star break? How do you plan to get some momentum going into that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people battling for that 8th spot, right? There's 4 or 5 of us. Who's going to go on a run? And this is a group that thinks that we want to be a part of the playoffs, but time is moving, and we got to make a move. I thought today was the right step in the direction that we want to go, but these are the games that you got to win.
Yeah, to this point, last night was one of those games that you have to win. If this was like game 7 or 10 of the season and you were looking at it as, okay, this was like a very positive step in a direction, we can take that from this and be at peace with it. You can't say that at this present moment, and that's why it feels like Nate is wanting to acknowledge that he appreciates the step forward that was, especially in respect to what they showed to have played, the level that they showed to have played with on Saturday. But it's not enough. These games have to end up resulting in wins for them, and they're not doing enough. They're close, really close, but that close ain't getting it done right now.
Close isn't getting it done in the games, and when you look at the standings, the Merc are now 5 games behind the Washington Mystics, who are 11-10 right now, and there are 19 games left to play for Phoenix and 23 remaining for Washington. But yeah, and you also play them a couple times, but ultimately you have to take care of your own, and it's going to be a bigger uphill climb than we realized it was with this team falling to where they are right now. We're just getting started talking about the Phoenix Mercury and what's been going wrong and what they might be able to do to fix it if the answer's on the roster, and maybe the answer is elsewhere. And after our break, we'll talk more about where that answer could come from and spin things forward about the road ahead. It's a special time here at All City Network, and here at PHNX, we are so lucky to be partners with Big Brothers Big Sisters. Something big is happening on Thursday. It's All City's Day of Giving, supporting the amazing folks at Big Brothers Big Sisters. And here's why it matters. Big Brothers Big Sisters is built around one idea: that every kid deserves someone in their corner, a trained screen adult mentor who shows up consistently, listens, and helps the kids see what's possible for their life. That's the whole model, and it's changed the outcome for kids over 100 years. This program doesn't run on good intentions alone. It takes real support to make every match last. So this Thursday, join us here on the PHNX YouTube channel, and we'll have a special donation link that you can help us fund this incredible organization. That's this Thursday with Big Brothers Big Sisters and All City Network, because it takes little to be big. Also, our friends over at Circle K fuel a lot. They fuel our cars. They fuel us with the snacks, with the peanut butter filled nuggets, with the pistachios, the chocolate covered almonds, the gummy worms, sour, and the original edition, with the 79-cent Polar Pops and 99-cent Frosters. But here's the deal with those two. You have to be an Inner Circle member to get a 79-cent Polar Pop.
Man, how much does that cost?
Guess what? Only thing you're paying for is those refreshments, because it's $0 to be an Inner Circle member. I'm an Inner Circle member. You an Inner Circle member?
I am.
Kev, you an Inner Circle member?
You already know, Gil.
3 Inner Circle members in this room. That's 3 for 3. So if you are in the chat and you're not an Inner Circle member, you can become an Inner Circle member. Save money on refreshments, save money on snacks, save money on gas. And join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. If you want to learn more details, visit CircleK.com. Back here at the PHNX Mercury Show, presented by our friends at Mountain America Credit Union, which is the official credit union of the Mercury. They have pretty smooth Mercury cards. You can look into that as well. And we're talking about the Phoenix Mercury. And we sit here on Tuesday, July 14th, and there are some big dates on the horizon. First and foremost, it's a back-to-back meeting at home against the Connecticut Sun. And then next weekend, got WNBA All-Star back in the beautiful city of Chicago, Illinois.
Heavy on it, beautiful.
You know, I love Chicago. We love
Gorgeous.
Chicago in here.
How was the weather, Steven?
You answered your own question.
Yeah, of course. And there you go. But then right after All-Star, August 2nd, at noon our time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last time you can make trades this season. The trade deadline looms, and there have been a lot of roster questions about signing people, adding people, subtracting people. We got about 18 days, I don't know, my math isn't great, but 17, 18 days, 2.5 weeks before the trade deadline happens. And not reporting, but wondering, will we see the Mercury be active in those avenues of adding or subtracting through different outlets over the next 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, I think that's a big question for them right now. I feel like they could use someone in the guard or wing room that can get downhill and just cause chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So someone that can go get their feet dirty in the paint, not a glancing blow paint touch, but a paint touch that puts pressure on the rim. It gets the reaction out of the defense. It feels like for what they were last season, and it was heavy on the shoulders of Alyssa Thomas in terms of doing this, but going to get paint touches and then playing off of the spray pass. It doesn't feel like they've made teams pay with their passing to the extent that they did last season. That netted them within a few wins of finals, a championship, another one in this illustrious franchise's history. Another one, exactly. So I feel like if they can find a way to get their hands on a guard that is getting to the paint to score, get into the paint that can then pass the ball off of that, or just in general, just be someone that can go get a piece of the paint and you can figure it out after that, I think that's something that would greatly help them in multiple respects. I'll start there. I have a couple of other bullet points I'll touch on as far as pieces I would like to see added in some capacity. Where does your mind go when you look at the roster, you look at the way things have doled out over the season and what you feel like would help maybe spark them in the right direction?
Think about secondary creation. I think about all that falls on Alyssa Thomas's shoulders.
Yep.
All that she's tasked with holding together, bringing together, keeping together, and what's she's getting as support goes is a lot falling on her shoulders, a lot falling on Kalia Copper's shoulders, and a lot that they've been tasked with doing. And they've been doing it about as well as they could, or about as well as you can when opposing defenses realize that, hey, everything else revolves around you two being you, so we can either let you be you, shout out to our friends over at Hilo, let you do you, or we can shut everybody else off. And both have proven to be beneficial because it's a sum of all the parts, especially in this league when depth oftentimes can be the difference. It can be the difference between can you pull away late, how are you going to execute late. And I think that's where my issues and concerns in clutch time are rooted, is that I know what I'm going to get from Kyle. I know what I'm going to get from AT, but so does everybody else in the arena. So does the opposing coaching staff. And you get concerned and worried about it's hit or miss, and it's a make or miss league. It's a make or miss sport. But the level of confidence that I have in those around them, which sometimes they've had big moments and big plays, but in an 8-17 season, it's been more unlikely than likely for that to happen. So a couple more steady hands and more consistent hands. There's the level of concern that goes around the size, which was exacerbated by the fact that, like, look, it was an issue already. And then it's like, well, now Mac is down. It's like, wow, was already literally a big problem. Now it's a really big problem in that your starting center, when you were lacking in depth already in that area, that's what's happening as well. So maybe a little more consistent, another look, another option there. So two archetypes that I could see helping this team when I watch them play. I think they could benefit from that. But the other problem is players like that just aren't out here walking around looking for work. Most people who would be helpful for this team have jobs and they're on other teams, which before we talk about the trade deadline, which that maybe aligns with that, it's going to be really hard to find some outside help because there have been some questions about how nobody has been signed. I don't know who they would go out and sign right away that's available right now.
Yeah, and that's where it gets tough. I think I always had in the back of my mind, okay, let's wait to see what things look like when you have both Sami Whitcomb and DeWanna Bonner firmly in your rotation.
Well, guess what?
Boy, I did not get a chance to see that, unfortunately.
Ain't
About
no way, boy.
2.5 to 3 week difference between Sami resurfacing in the rotation and the Mercury not having DeWanna Bonner for the rest of this season. So that is tough on that front, but I'm taking another quick look at something else to confirm this thought for me. Yes. So 3-point makes per game. The Mercury are number 11 in the W.
Only 15 teams, Steven.
Only 15. That's not good. That's not good
it's
enough.
The bottom third.
That's not good enough.
It's the bottom third.
Not good enough. They're making 8.2 a game. A lot of single-digit threes made games for the Merc this season. Now, the volume isn't the highest either. The volume at 24.8 a game is 9th. And that is on a very slow uptick, but it is on the uptick because they've been spending more time in transition over the last 2 to 3 weeks or so. So it's trending in the direction they needed to. You have to cash in on the low volume of attempts that you are creating. The other part of that too, though, 33% is 10th in the W right now. So if you can find someone on the market that might maybe easily poachable, or maybe a team that is undergoing some injuries could potentially find someone that might have to cut someone based off of who they signed amidst the injury woes that they were having. I'm looking at someone like, just throwing names out there like Ty Harris. We talked about her last week. Obviously, we had a front row seat to watching her play against the Mercury, and she did a fairly solid job going up against them in the clutch time in particular. But past that specific instance, for me, it's Ty Harris having high-level winning experience specifically with DeWanna Bonner and Alyssa Thomas. So all of the screening stuff that all of the guards or all of the smaller players on the Mercury do for Alyssa Thomas with Alyssa Thomas, guess who has as much experience, if not more, than most of the players this season has with her? Ty Harris. Fits hand in glove in terms of what the demand on the guard position would be for them. Gives them a little bit of positional size with that too. I feel like marginal moves like that, I'm not expecting them to go and bring in a top 12, a top 10, top 8 player. I don't think that's in the cards for them. But I think someone that's on the margins, they can just be consistent in bringing something unique from what everybody else does on the roster that's in the main rotation now will help them a lot. Someone they can shoot, someone they can shoot off a movement, can be passable defensively, knows what it takes to win, has some experience, has experience with players already in the room. I think like something like that will help them a lot. And then the other name I'll continue to just throw out there because I think she would firmly fit with what they need regardless of who is and isn't available, Emma Miesemann. Emma Miesemann is very, very, very good. Plug-and-play, as much of a plug-and-play player as you'll ever see. And I think there's someone that, again, I don't know if she actually wants to even come over to play, so I can't speak on that side, but that's someone that would firmly help their front court in terms of the size, the versatility, maintaining style of play across multiple lineups, can play with or without Alyssa Thomas and be extremely impactful with that, and also help to make everybody else better in addition to all of that.
See, Armani says Ty Harris is not moving the needle at all. I mean,
the Indiana Fever have been winning these games without Caitlin Clark, and that's not.
I was going to say that. Ty Harris was one of the most impactful players in Thursday's game. You could say it was just against the Mercury for whatever it is, but to be determined if it would move the needle here or not. But I think we're all in agreement that you got to try something.
Exactly.
Got to try something. Try something different. And I know you know a little more about her contract situation with them and like the potential of becoming available. But now we're entering the territory where it's like, why would somebody want to come join a team that's 9? Hopefully not 10 games below 500. But they like she might not move the needle, but I think that somebody different is worth a look just to see if you can get some type of different outcome. And moving the needle, thankfully for this team, in some ways, is not necessarily, hey, go out here and like right our wrongs. It's, hey, can you be the stopgap that we don't allow teams to overcome a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter or an 8-point deficit in the fourth quarter, which this team does so often. And we keep saying at the end of the game, man, if they had just gotten one play, if one more three could have gone down, we'd be having a happy discussion. So that's my thought process there, finding somebody in the margins because, as you mentioned, a big-time player is probably not going to be on the move at the trade deadline or anything like that. So it's probably going to be somebody who on the surface probably won't seem or look like they move the needle. And, again, it might not be Ty Harris, but I do think that it could be somebody in that realm that you make a move to add, and then you go from there.
Yeah, I think that's the tough part. You're not going to find someone that's going to just swing everything in your room. So finding someone on the margins that is attainable for you based off of what you're willing to potentially part with, or again, if you can find somebody that ends up getting cut from whatever roster they're on at this present moment and that you're able to just bring in off your own will, like those are the type of creative roster maneuvering and cap situation maneuvering dynamics you want to be able to kind of find a way to just get a competitive advantage on. Can you bring in somebody that helps you be even 2 or 3% better than what you were before they came in? And can that piece also complement what it is that you do actually do well at this present moment? So that was the reason why I brought up the Ty Harris name. Also, for people that maybe don't remember, Ty Harris was initially included in the Alyssa Thomas trade. And then they ended up cutting her. She ended up going to Dallas, didn't really play much. And then ultimately after last season found her way to Indiana, where she's been providing some impactful minutes and moments with that team over this course of games where they've been winning a little bit more, especially in the absence of Caitlin Clark. So I'll throw that name out there just looking at the guard portion. I'll throw Emma Mieseman's name out there in the bigs portion. I haven't really entertained too many other names per se, just because you start looking at, see a name like Skylar out there. Skylar's making a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So unless Skylar's getting cut from the Chicago Sky, which we got update on her injury and she's just not, there's no timetable for her return at this present moment. Maybe something's going on there that you could potentially get in on. But again, you also have to factor in, okay, if you're bringing in Skylar, what's the position you're selling her on in terms of can you get her bought into what it is she will be playing role-wise for this team? There's a lot of things you have to factor in there. I saw Ray Burrell's name in there. Ray Burrell is very good. I think Nate Tibbetts is someone who believes in Ray as much as any other coach in the W, and we saw that in the FIBA tournament that took place over the offseason portion right before training camp started. He really kind of put her in a position to be successful and infused her with confidence. I just don't know how realistic it is that the Los Angeles Sparks are, A, wanting to give her up, but B, also how attainable she will be specifically for the Mercury. Another name, if we're going to Sparks route, I would like to see with the Mercury is Ariel Atkins. I don't know how realistic that is as well, given contract, given standing with the team, and how integral she's shown to be with them already in her first season with the Sparks. But yeah, there's fun names out there, but you have to also kind of think about, okay, how could this player be got? Is it realistic or possible? And what does their role for that player with this team look like in terms of what their weaknesses are, and can it help address any of those?
So looking at the schedule, you have 3 games before the All-Star break.
Yep. Between
now and then. Mm-hmm. And then
2 of them with the Connecticut Sun.
And then you have 5 games before the trade deadline.
Yep.
And there was some tank talk early on in the chat, but a reminder, it's cumulative. Having a bad year is not going to just magically give this team a great opportunity to get a big name in the draft like a Juju Watkins. So in the words of Nick Saban, they're not going to, so quit asking. Mm-hmm. Now, there is a question of where do you find yourself over these 5 games between now and the trade deadline. If you go 2-3 or 3-2, whatever it is, let's say you go 3-2, you're at game 30 and you are 11-19. Is it worth taking some type of big swing to be a team that is actively trying to add talent to make a late season run at 8 games under 500, 30 games into the season with 14 games remaining and a FIBA break ahead of you? Or do you stand pat? Or are you more so looking to see if you can get some value elsewhere by trading somebody out? I feel like, the whole question of like buying or selling, it really does feel like they would be, I won't call it malpractice, but it might be a little irresponsible to be super aggressive at the trade deadline when you're that far below 500 and you just don't really have a realistic path to make the playoffs at that point in time. Now, that could change. You could go on a run. You can go 5-0 into the break and you're 4 games under 500 going to trade deadline. But it just is what it is. It doesn't feel like it's a tough spot where I'm very curious to see how they approach the trade deadline.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they approach it as well. And this is why I preface with I don't expect them to make a big move. And this is also why I mentioned a more marginal name than one of the louder, maybe more desirable names just based off of talent and name recognition and things like that. So that's a little bit of the catch-22 that they're in right now, and they got to find a way to just dig out of this abyss that they're in right now, start seeing a little bit of daylight, and then hope that maybe they can add a marginal piece or two that helps to expedite that process and hopefully get them to a point where they have just a singular chance towards the end of the regular season.
Right. Now, we talked about the upcoming stretch, and you hinted at it already.
Mm-hmm.
It continues, so a little time off between playing yesterday and playing on Friday against Connecticut.
A lot of practice time.
First of 2 games against Connecticut, who moved to 6-18 on the season with a win over the Portland Fire this morning. It tipped off at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. our time today.
Welcome to the camp day game realm of the W schedule.
Of course, which they're here now, got a 90-87 win over Portland, and that's where they are right now. And you can't be deceived by that team's record. I know at one point we were coming into it, it looked like it represented opportunity, but as it is, man, you just are a game or two better than them as the record stands. Now, they've taken care of business against teams below them, although it's only a couple teams below them in the standings. But this is a Sun team that has talent. Today's game, Brittany Griner will be a return back at 20 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds. Aaliyah Edwards, 21 points off the bench. Like, they have people that you're going to have to deal with in this team, and it's not going to be easy. And it's really, really difficult to beat the same team twice. So it does not get any easier. I'm not looking at Connecticut's record and saying, oh, they're 6-18, easy win. Because at the end of the day, you look at yourself in the mirror, you're 8-17. So going into the weekend, beginning Friday against Connecticut, what are your expectations? What are you looking forward to? What are you looking toward?
I'm looking forward to seeing a team that is coming out with fire. So setting a tone regardless of what their opponents do or don't do. You come out and you play Mercury basketball off rip. So from tip-off through the finish line of the first quarter, you are setting a tone. Setting a tone that can be picked up off of in the first few minutes of the second quarter, doubling down on what you established the terms of play to be in that first quarter, and then continuing on with that beaten path. So if you drop 25 in the first, you don't follow that with 14 in the second. That kind of shaves off some of that momentum that you had. You go out and you get 22, 23 points. Maybe you go get 25 or 27 to double down on what you showed to do in that first quarter. But generally keeping up that pace. You want to keep that pace, keep that competitive fervor that you have shown to have in many first quarters in your recent stretches of games. And then the other part for me is offensively, finding it and then sustaining it. Getting teams in scramble mode, finding your cutters, getting a blend of that with your transition play, getting a blend of all of that with the Alyssa Thomas-led pick and rolls, the Kalia Copper handoffs, and her playing off of pick and rolls and things like that. Can you get a steady blend of each and one of these elements that make you a better offensive team in the W than you've shown to be consistently so far this season? It's a lot, but I feel like, again, they have the internal pieces to get to a certain level. And I don't want to say this disrespectfully because the Mercury are not a team that's far ahead of where Connecticut is right now. But you have a team and an opponent that you should be able to do a little bit more against. They have ways that they can stress you and strain you and test you, which they will. But this is a team that you should come in and you should be looking to really put the smack down on your opponent and kind of really start to reestablish your stuff to give yourself just a little bit of something to believe in and kind of help you turn that corner. Triculate that in the Sunday's game with this very same team, playoff style format here, and then take that into your game next Wednesday before the All-Star break.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I was thinking about because it's really only one other team you've played that's in this realm as far as the standings go, and that was Seattle. And what have you done? You've taken care of business each time that you've played Seattle. So it's something that's possible, but we've seen the Sun compete. We saw the win that they got this morning. We've seen that they've made teams like Dallas sweat this year. So this is not a Sun team that is a fluke. My eyes are on Friday, which, by the way, we'll be back here for post-game on Friday in that one. But I look at it as an opportunity. I look at it as an opportunity to get healthier, those bumps and bruises that you picked up over the time, a lot of time in between games, but do not come out rusty. That's what we saw after in between from Seattle to Chicago last week. A lot of rust, a lot of turnovers. It was 9 assists to 20 turnovers in that game. Take care of the ball. Do what you do. It's going to be a big Mercury versus Mercury weekend. I see some mixed feelings on, will the Sun get one? Will the Sun get both? And a great point. They have nothing for BG. She has AT by 8 inches. Just feed BG the ball. She's been playing well. I know it's a big thing for her joining Connecticut, which she'll get to play in her hometown of Houston next year because the Sun will soon be the Comets in less than a year's time. But that's going to be a big difference maker in this one. But I don't know if she alone can beat you if you are playing team basketball all across the board. She can't play all 40 minutes of the game. So going to be a big test. But my biggest thing going into the weekend, play your game, control what you can control, play a clean game of basketball. And I personally believe that based on what we've seen from the Merc, even the ups and downs, the level of compete that they showed last night in Minnesota is good enough to get both wins this weekend. But that's the big if. Will they have that level of compete? Will they have that level of attention to detail and execution? If so, then we're going into next week thinking, okay, hey, they're 10-17. But if not, ciao Gucci. If not, yeah. If not, then I think they split this weekend.
Yeah, same conversation we had. What was it going into the Indiana game where you needed to go 3-0 in that home stretch, then you needed to go 2-1 and you ended up 1-2. You gotta go get both of these. I know Connecticut is going to present resistance in their own respect. They're not just gonna get walked over in any capacity, but you're also not in a position where you should be looking past anybody. I think you should come in with the mental competitive advantage of, hey, man, we got a lot that we're still playing for. Our expectations are not even close to what theirs were. We got something to lose in all of this, a little bit different than what Connecticut has. Let's go get the job done. So I'm looking forward to that part of it. Are we putting a pin in this conversation, or do we want to speak on anything else? Because we got 3 bits of news that we want to close things out with.
Yes, we can go. Yeah, well, what's the 3 bits of news?
Hoping that the positive side of things we can help flow into the weekend game for them. Nonetheless, we saw Sami Whitcomb become the all-time leader in threes made off the bench.
Yeah,
passing Kara Lawson with 307 threes made off the bench. So Sami Whitcomb hasn't quite been around with the team much this season. Played her 3rd game yesterday against Minnesota. And true to Sami Whitcomb fashion, knocked down some major well-timed threes in that stadium against that team. No different than she did last season and pretty much what feels like every season prior to this present moment of her career. That's just what she does. So shout out to Sami Whitcomb. Glad to see her back. They're going to need everything that she can bring and then some. And as she gets her game rhythm, I imagine her impact will be felt more and more. So I want to shout out Sami the Aussie for that. DeWanna Bonner continues to just do historic things and climb all-time ranks. Moved to 6th all-time in history for steals, passing Cheryl Swoops. So shout out to DB. A lot of things on the defensive end of the floor. She just continues to climb the ladder and become an all-time great in tandem with being one of the only 3 players that scored 8,000 points. So nothing to scoff at in terms of DeWanna's career. She continues to find ways to get the job done. And then lastly, but certainly not least, Alyssa Thomas joining Diana Taurasi as the only players in WNBA history to get 4,000+ points, 2,000+ rebounds, and 2,000+ assists in their career. The fact that Alyssa Thomas is doing this without the 3-ball being something that's a part of her game at all is insane. To get to the 2,000+ assist mark when you're not a literal point guard, that says a lot. I would love to see what her numbers look like if you factor in the assist points that she's created with those 2,000+ assists, because so many 3-balls have come from AT and all of the actions that you can run around her. And I wonder where she would stack with others in respect to how many points generated from assists with that. And then the rebounds. You put the rebounds in tandem with the scoring and the assists. You have the entire Alyssa Thomas experience in one. Very unique and different from how Diana Taurasi operated. And I think that's the fun part of Alyssa. When you look at her as an all-time great and all of the great things and great feats that she's accomplished, You look at how differently she's had to go about doing her job than every other player that's done this stuff that she has. And it should help paint a better picture in light of just what her greatness is. Very unique, much a one-of-one. And I'm looking forward to what else she has in store before she ultimately calls it quits.
That's the big thing that you said, some positive news, some things. And when the season is going the way it is, when you've lost 4 games in a row, when you've lost 4 games in a row and you come back and you're 9 games under 500, you have to find something positive to latch on to. Yeah. And yesterday was a valiant effort, but there's no moral victory. So you can't really latch on to that. But the achievements and doing things, some positive momentum, coming back home for a 2-game homestand, your last 2 home games, if I believe correctly, your last 2 home games before the All-Star break. So you got 2 games at home, then 1 on the road, and it's All-Star time. Yep. So your last 2 home games before All-Star break against a team who is not necessarily a lesser team, but they have a worse record than you. How can you build on that? So got my eyes on that. Looking forward to it. Another opportunity for Miguel on the court, another opportunity for us to watch Mercury basketball, and we will be here with you for that. Steven and I will both be on hand at Friday's game. And as a reminder, Friday's game tips at 7 p.m. and shortly after the final buzzer, maybe not that shortly, but somewhere between 9:30 and 10, we will look to have post-game for you all. So keep it locked in with us here at PHNX_Mercury, which is also where you can follow us. You can also follow our incredible producer, Kev, at Kevo Posts, who is bringing all the... Did I do it right? Is it that? I don't know. I'm probably not. Clocking. You clock tea. You clock the tea. I usually pour tea or steep it or ice it. I don't clock it. But that's just because I'm an old man. That's okay, though. There you go. You can follow Steven, who always shakes his head, and you know he keeps me.
I'm always forced to shake my head.
He keeps me accountable. Okay, and everybody appreciates that. Everybody needs a Steven in their locker room.
Can't even defend the Unk allegations when you talking like that, brother.
I mean, you know, you're right. You're right. It is what it is.
My brother said, "I steep it."
I steep it. Yeah, you steep your tea, man. You know, hey, listen, that's what it is. Listen, bro, it ain't that steep.
I almost said something.
Thanks, man. You can follow Steven at Steven PG3, still shaking his head but with a smile on his face because that was clever. You can follow
Nigga, wrong fingers.
See, I know I did it wrong.
Wait, what did you do?
I did this.
Is it not this?
I don't know.
Wait.
I don't know what it is. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. I will figure it out by post game on Friday.
I have no faith.
You can follow me.
No faith.
You can follow me at Gil McGregor.
Have no faith. Negative faith.
I didn't think I was doing it right.
Is that not how you do it? Is this not how you do it?
Clock it.
Right?
I don't know.
What am I missing?
Follow me at Gil McGregor _ and let me know what I'm doing incorrectly, and then I'll get it right before Friday's game. Like I said, one more
time. Highly doubtful.
Probable. I will catch you back here. We will catch you back here Friday post game, hopefully after a win. Appreciate you hanging out with us.
Y'all.
See you then.
We all silly like the mayor.